So we have some interesting news regarding NXT coming out over the last few hours. First of all, what we're going to talk about is potentially, the end of the Wednesday Night Wars between AEW Dynamite and WWE NXT. It looks like the Wednesday Night Wars could be ending very soon. It certainly sounds like WWE NXT is moving to Tuesday nights following WrestleMania in April. This is if the latest reports on the subject are accurate. Now, according to Mike Johnson of PW Insider, several WWE sources have confirmed that NXT will in fact air on the USA Network Tuesday, April 13, following this year's WrestleMania. Now, at the time of recording right now, and this must be emphasized and stressed here, at the time of recording right now, WWE still hasn't publicly commented on this or NXT's move to Tuesday nights. Johnson is reporting that WWE's production calendar lists the April 13 date for NXT, and this all seems like a formality at this point, and the sooner that WWE makes an announcement on the fact, we'll discuss it. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful has also spoken about this and said that he's heard similar reports that the production calendar is saying that Tuesday night following WrestleMania is for NXT. Now, Johnson hasn't been able to confirm, though, if this move to Tuesdays will be permanent, but there's enough evidence here to say that this is the plan between WWE and the USA Network. Now, some detractors about this and some counter-arguments to this all regard the National Hockey League, of course, right? Some detractors are arguing that the move to Tuesdays for WWE NXT is now no longer necessary since the NHL hockey will be airing on ESPN this fall. Still, those people fail to understand and still don't understand that just like the NHL, just like the NFL and NBA and other major sports leagues they can be contracted to numerous networks throughout the year. So at the moment, as of right now, the NHL isn't exclusive to ESPN or anything like that. As far as I'm aware, NBC Universal are still negotiating for their own sports package when it comes to the NHL. So that doesn't mean, of course, that the NHL won't air on Wednesdays on NBC or on the USA Network or something like that. The NHL airing games through ESPN doesn't mean Wednesday night hockey won't stay on NBC and air on the USA Network this fall. WWE getting out ahead of this and moving nights months before being forced to is probably the right move. I don't know if when it comes to PR, if it's the best move to be seen that, we got bumped because the hockey went to NBC. If WWE and the USA Network can kind of come to an understanding first and move to Tuesdays right after WrestleMania as well, right after the 2-day NXT TakeOver 2, they can certainly build on a bit of momentum there and actually pop some big numbers, which of course NXT hasn't really done on its move to Wednesday nights on the USA Network. Now, of course, if NXT does move to Tuesday nights, this means the end of the Wednesday Night War, of course, and it certainly will allow fans to either choose watching NXT on Tuesday and AEW Dynamite on a Wednesday. They will no longer have to choose between AEW and NXT on Wednesday nights, and now fans can watch both shows on different nights and allow them to see an increase in both viewership and ratings when the shows aren't competing against each other. Now, this is certainly a really interesting story, and to be honest, it feels inevitable. It feels inevitable. That was my first thought when I saw this story, when I read about it, was that this has been coming for a long time. This has been coming, I don't know, about 6 months after Dynamite and NXT made their debuts on Wednesday nights, one on the USA Network, one on TNT, because yes, sometimes NXT has won in viewership. As far as I'm aware, I don't think NXT has ever won in the key 18 to 49 demographic. If you want to call it a war, AEW has dominated. I mean, it's not even been close, has it? And ever since, and I think for a while, and this must be stressed here, for a while people thought, well, that's just the way it's going to be. NXT, it was on Wednesdays prior to going to the USA Network. I still disagree with Triple H when he says, well, we were on Wednesdays first, so they just copied us, AEW Dynamite, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, it really didn't work like that. It really didn't work like that. The plan when it came to Dynamite for AEW was to air on Tuesday nights. It was going to be called Tuesday Night Dynamite. That was the whole point. They even trademarked the name. Then they found out with TNT that there were going to be lots of NBA games. Of course, TNT has the NBA contract to air games on that network. And they found out that actually that's probably going to be really unlikely for AEW to air on Tuesday nights because of the NBA. Okay, they move it to Wednesdays. Wow, so they announced that Dynamite's going to air on Wednesdays on TNT, and then wouldn't you know it, suddenly, was it a week later or a couple weeks later, NXT is announced to be airing on the USA Network in the same 2-hour time slot on the same night, Wednesday night. Previously, of course, NXT had been a 1-hour show. It was taped in batch TV tapings. It did air first on the WWE Network on Wednesday nights, but frankly, not many people watched it live on that Wednesday night time slot on the WWE Network. Most people, I think, watched it on demand or whenever they wanted to. That's kind of the beauty of the WWE Network when it comes to all of the on-demand stuff. It's a bit like Netflix or Amazon Prime or Disney Plus or anything like that, that you can just watch it whenever you want. Whenever it drops, you can watch it whenever you want at your own time. I think very few people actually said, you know what, I'm going to be watching that first run of NXT when it drops on the network. Most people will just maybe watch it the day after or whatever. That's what they did when it came to NXT. So the idea that Triple H can go, you know what, we were on Wednesdays first, all that kind of stuff. I don't think AEW, stole anything from WWE or tried to mooch in on NXT's time slot. I don't even think AEW really wanted to compete with WWE. They didn't want to turn it into a war or anything like that. They really didn't, because they didn't know how people were going to react to their content. They didn't know how many viewers they were or were not going to get on TNT or anything like that. They just wanted to have their own program and hopefully have people watching it and hopefully have it be a success, have people tune in and be profitable in its first year. And they managed to do that despite the competition. And then eventually, I think it came to a point, and I've mentioned this tons of times here on the channel, that eventually it got to a point where NXT was no longer in competition with AEW. I think the idea that NXT was competing with AEW maybe lasted 3 months, 4 months, if that, because eventually it just became a case of, look, NXT is on Wednesdays to take viewers away from AEW Dynamite. And that was the whole point, because and we've seen the evidence of this now, that if AEW Dynamite is unopposed on Wednesday nights from another pro wrestling program, they get close to 1 million viewers. Not always. They might get 900,000 or 950,000 or, the high 800s or anything like that, but they get close to 1 million live viewers on TNT. Factor in people watching on demand or DVR, it's over 1 million every single week. And WWE looks at that, and obviously they would be concerned. The reason they would be concerned by that is because flagship programs, not really SmackDown. SmackDown's on network television. It's difficult to compare, and SmackDown should always outdraw AEW Dynamite because it's on Fox, because it's on network television. But Monday Night Raw, WWE looks at Raw and they see the numbers that Raw has been doing for the last couple of years, especially in 2020. They look at Monday Night Raw and they see the record low of 1.6 million live viewers tuning into the USA Network, and they average around now, across that 3-hour show, they average about 1.8 million live viewers. Yes, a lot of the time they do have a relatively strong demographic in the 18 to 49 demo, especially at the moment because there's no competition from the NFL, there's no Monday Night Football or any real strong college football or anything like that opposes them. So at the moment they do have a decent demographic, and most of the time they're number one in the cable top 150 in the key demographic. But WWE doesn't want AEW to succeed on a Wednesday, because the moment that AEW Dynamite starts regularly getting over 1 million live viewers every single week on TNT, and then eventually that could creep up to 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, or even 1.6, then they're not far away from Monday Night Raw. And why is that a problem for WWE? Well, it's a problem for WWE because NBC Universal, the USA Network, will look at that and they'll say, wait a minute, we're paying something like $1 billion across 5 years for Monday Night Raw. And I know for a fact that TNT, they're not paying that much for AEW Dynamite on Wednesday nights. And how come AEW Dynamite might be getting close to the same amount of viewers or the same demographic or the same rating? Why are we paying all of this money for this flagship program and all this kind of stuff? USA Network would question that, and WWE, they don't want to lose that money. Now, personally, I don't think it will probably ever get to that stage. I think the fact that WWE licensed the WWE Network to Peacock streaming service, which of course is an NBC property, shows that the relationship between NBC Universal and WWE is arguably stronger than it's ever been at this point. So I'm not sure if really that discussion would ever come up, but it might, if Dynamite flourishes with no competition, it doesn't reflect well on WWE, and it proves that wrestling fans are open to watching something else, and possibly lapsed fans of WWE are also open to watching something else. So that would be a concern, I think, for WWE, and for a long time with NXT, that was its sole purpose. It wasn't to compete, it was to take viewers away from Dynamite on Wednesdays. If NXT airs on Wednesday nights in the same time slot, they can know that maybe there'll be 600, 700, 800,000 live viewers watching on the USA Network that aren't watching on TNT. And that makes WWE very happy because the thought of all of those viewers watching Dynamite is a big concern for them. Now, moving to Tuesdays has obviously, for me, always been the option that I think everyone wanted. Everyone's wanted this. Ever since they did the Super Tuesday experiment in 2020, where NXT, because of the hockey, was moved to Tuesday nights because of the hockey playoffs, NXT did two very strong numbers. I think it was something like, was it close to 800,000 live viewers and a strong demographic number in terms of the rating as well. And WWE and USA Network and people who are in NXT were very happy about that. And everyone, all of the viewers at home and all the people on social media looked at that and said, well, it's obvious. The solution is obvious. NXT should move to Tuesdays. It can flourish on a Tuesday and just let Dynamite do its own thing on a Wednesday night. Now, people said that the reason Vince McMahon wouldn't go for that is because, as I mentioned, NXT's purpose is to take viewers away from AEW, but also it would kind of be admitting defeat for Vince McMahon, which he never does. Oh, we can't lose to another pro wrestling company, all that kind of stuff. I think when it comes to it now, at this point, people have just got to realise, just get your ego in check. You know, there's gone are the days, I think, where WWE is going to just dominate and trounce any other promotion out of existence. Maybe when it comes to finances, but this AEW is a company they can't do that to. And AEW right now is popular for the content that they provide. Will it still be very popular in 5 years' time? Who knows? Who knows? But it's an alternative that obviously isn't going away anytime soon. I think WWE hoped that putting NXT in the same time slot, which kind of has the same, or what was thought to be the same audience as AEW, that sort of indie, all that kind of stuff, wrestling fan, the underground wrestling fan, it's proved that actually the audiences are completely different. NXT's got this older audience, AEW's got this completely younger audience that has no real interest in WWE. Those are the distinct audiences there. So this move has been a long time coming. I hope it's announced officially soon, but it's the right thing for all parties. And I know WWE might look at it as, oh, we're admitting defeat and all this kind of stuff, but it's just what's best for both brands. It's what's best for both companies. And as a pro wrestling fan, I want to see every form of pro wrestling succeed. And I think gone are the days of the late 1990s of the Monday Night Wars that you need this competition to really flourish. That hasn't happened. I think people initially thought this was going to be a repeat of the Monday Night Wars, and 18 months later, close to 2 years later, the ratings haven't changed. Yes, there's been a pandemic, but the ratings really haven't changed that much. And it just goes to show that previous competition, and everyone used to say, oh yeah, going head to head, it's the best thing for business. That's not the case now. It's not the case now. The best thing for business is for everyone to have their own place and build their own niche. And I think that's what NXT and AEW Dynamite are going to have to do on their separate days at this point. But I don't think it's a bad thing. And frankly, I think it's been a long time coming. Now, I do want to talk about something else when it comes to NXT as well, because this is a really interesting story that's broken over the last couple of hours or so. And it regards to another outbreak at the WWE Performance Center when it comes to NXT. Now, on a handful of occasions over the course of the last 12 months during the pandemic, NXT and main roster talent and shows have been affected by the worldwide pandemic. Now, there may be more changes to this week's output, according to a recent report. According to Fightful, this week's NXT show will potentially be undergoing multiple changes, as members of the Black and Gold brand have been informed they should quarantine ahead of Wednesday's show. Fightful have claimed that the fears came from a meeting or event last week where a notable number of WWE Performance Center trainees were in attendance. It has been said that many people at the meeting were not following the expected COVID precautions. This has in turn led to talent being pulled from the upcoming show and others being told to quarantine. It was also been widely reported that multiple WWE stars have come under fire from WWE Chairman Vince McMahon for incorrectly following safety protocols concerning COVID-19. McMahon reportedly was upset with a member of talent or staff who was pictured unmasked at Disney World. So as far as who has tested positive, hasn't tested positive, who's going to be quarantined or anything like that, I always say this, I don't think it's fair to speculate. These are private medical conditions. Unless they come out and say that they've tested positive or they're going to have to quarantine, it's not fair to speculate on who. What I will say is I did see those recent reports that Vince McMahon wasn't happy about talents not following COVID protocols and procedures. And he must see this and be furious. He must see this and be furious. Now, you can have, only a slight amount of sympathy because at the end of the day, it's his company and the buck stops with Vince McMahon. And if he really wanted to prevent anything like this, he would put in stricter precautions and procedures in place. I think at the Performance Center, they get tested like twice a week. It's not like with every other WWE show where you're tested before the show, the day before, and the day off to make sure that you don't test positive. If you do test positive, you don't even get in the building. That's not the case when it comes to the Performance Center. It's twice a week and they're there 5 days a week. So there are going to be problems. There are going to be problems in general if you run shows during a pandemic. That's always going to be a problem. But I do agree with Vince McMahon, frankly, on some of the concerns that some talents aren't following certain procedures. Now, obviously, it's very difficult to control what a talent does and doesn't do outside of the realms of WWE. If they're off the clock and they're in Disney World and they're not wearing a mask, unfortunately, that's not the WWE's prerogative. That's, the prerogative of Disney World if they allow that or they don't allow that. And at the end of the day, unless there is a mask mandate or there's a mask mandate of the property or by the government or whatever, they can do what they want. I think maybe Vince McMahon should look at this and say, look, if you're pictured out and about at a public space or in a public setting, certainly if you're at any meeting when it comes to WWE and you're not following the proper procedures or the proper protocols or you're not wearing a mask or whatever, we're going to hand out fines. But that's what we're going to do. And if you're under contract as a WWE member of staff, talent, whatever, regardless of what your views are, if you believe or don't believe in this pandemic that's been going on a year at this point and has killed thousands of people, regardless of what you do or don't believe, you're representing the company. You might not think it, that when you're off the clock or you're not actually at a WWE show or whatever, but you're always representing the company. You're in the public eye. You're a public figure. You're always representing the WWE. And we're doing all of these advertisements and videos at the moment telling people to follow safety procedures and safety protocols and sanitize their hands, wash their hands, wear masks, social distance. And if you're not following that, what kind of message does it send? Furthermore, Vince McMahon, of course, had promised multiple high-profile WWE stars they would be stepping back into a work environment that was safe and had these safety precautions and procedures in place. He said the same to the likes of Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, the list goes on, of stars that said, you know what, at the start of the pandemic, I don't feel safe working here, not because of myself, but mainly because of the beliefs of others and how people behave. And unless WWE can get this into shape, I'm not coming back. That was what Roman Reigns said. Roman Reigns said, look, if this pandemic lasts 5 years and they don't get their house in order, I'm not going to come back. I don't need to come back. I'm happy to stay at home. And Vince McMahon had to have a discussion with Roman Reigns saying, look, things have changed. We've made great strides here. We've put certain procedures and protocols in place. We've got this testing before every single show. We've got social distancing, hand sanitizing, all this stuff. And then if Vince McMahon sees this, sees these talents at Disney World or wherever not following these procedures and these protocols, it must make his head explode, because then how does he go to Roman Reigns and say, wow, that's just that guy? Because if you're Roman Reigns, you're looking at that and you're saying, well, that's just one person. How do I know? A state of paranoia can almost set in, can't it? He must look at that and say, well, how do I know they're following the right thing to do here? How do I know that they're taking it seriously? How do I know that they're not carrying it? All that kind of stuff is a massive concern. And this isn't the first outbreak, especially when it comes to the Performance Center in NXT. Personally, I don't think it'll be the last one either. I think the only way to fix this is to do daily testing, is to make sure that everyone who steps a foot in that Performance Center is tested. Unless you do that, you're not going to, you're always going to have these outbreaks, unfortunately. We are in a pandemic. So, it's concerning, obviously, especially towards WrestleMania season as well. We know that in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to have, WWE aims to have 45,000 live fans in attendance each night at WrestleMania, potentially 90,000 people there across 2 nights. I know there'll probably be some repeats, but again, it doesn't look great when you've got outbreaks at the Performance Center and NXT, and then you're saying, don't worry, all of these live fans can return, it's going to be totally safe, they're not going to get ill, they're not going to get sick, it's not going to be a super spreader event. You can't even manage your own employees. Well, sir, excuse me, they're not employees, are they? You can't even manage your own independent contractors, let alone, members of the general public in the stands. That's also got to be a massive concern for people. So for a variety of reasons, Vince McMahon must see this and pull his hair out. So obviously NXT looks to be going under multiple changes when it comes to Wednesday night because of this outbreak and because of this quarantine, and potentially in terms of the show, looks like we're going to have some changes post WrestleMania, moving to Tuesdays as well. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on NXT possibly moving to Tuesdays after WrestleMania and the latest outbreak at the WWE Performance Center? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings, and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.